So that's where we are. I mean, I hate tyrants. I hate pedophiles. I hate Satanists. I hate globalists. But I can't do this without you. And I'm just saying, I will fight to the death. I won't back down. I'll never stop. I'll interview everybody. I'll go 110 miles an hour through traffic. But I need you to back me. It's that simple. Go to drjonesnaturals.com right now and buy products that support you and your family, that do amazing things, and support the broadcast. It's all at drjonesnaturals.com. Go check out the products for yourself, InfoWarsStore.com. All right, Owen Schroyer and Chase Geiser, and they're doing an X Spaces. We haven't taken the comments yet. We did some in the first hour, are about to host, and we have millions of precious people. If I had a crowd of 50 people right now I was talking to, I would just spend hours talking to them. We have millions of people. CNN doesn't have that. ABC doesn't have that. NBC doesn't have that. CBS doesn't have that. NPR doesn't have that. I don't take that as like, oh, I'm this big badass. I got millions of viewers. We are reaching millions of new people. And if you just decide to take the feed from Infowars.com/show and Band.video, if you just decide to go get a vitamin or a mineral product or something at drjonesnaturals.com, you change the world. It's your decisions that change the world. So I'm going to go home. I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. I'm going to cook breakfast for my family. I'll be back here at like 9 a.m. tomorrow. And I'll be on air at 11 a.m., God willing. But everybody's going to freak out if they're successful shutting us down. They may be. Like, God, he wasn't making that up. You think all this big, long, drawn-out fight, some act? This is a fight, man. This is what a fight looks like. We're hard to kill. We're hard to shut down. We got God on our side. But we're so close to being shut down. We need your prayer and your support right now at drjonesnaturals.com. And I thank you all. All right, Owen Schroyer and Chase Geiser take over now.
And it's time for humanity to stand up in the info war and say, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this, but you want to fight, you better believe you got one.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones. The answer to 1984 is 1776.
InfoWars has been banned, arrested, attacked, and threatened because we are effective. The Great Awakening is here. Go to band.video, download the videos, and share. Support the information war at InfoWarsStore.com. And never give up the fight.
Infowars.com.
That's right, never give up the fight. Or as it was once said, the hardest enemy, the hardest opponent to beat is the one that never gives up. The one that never stops fighting. So that's what this movement is all about. And right now it's Donald Trump really making his claim to be the leader of that movement tonight with this massive debate victory. All right, here's what we've got now back in the InfoWars World Headquarters in Austin, Texas. Owen Schroyer, Chase Geiser live with you, live on X at InfoWars at Real Alex Jones, live on the Rumble InfoWars feed, and of course live at Band.video. And just by the sheer numbers that we have tonight, it shows that there's a lot of interest in tonight's debate. So here's what we're going to do. We've got some developments since the debate that Chase and I are going to be going over. We're also going to be just kind of recapping what was seen tonight in the debate. But here's some major developments since the debate has concluded. The betting odds for Joe Biden are tanking, and Gavin Newsom has gained the most in this short time since the conclusion of the debate. All the attention also seems to be on Gavin Newsom. The media following him around, asking him if he's going to step up. That seems to be the story. And so when your top story, if you're the Democrat Party, is who you're going to place your current candidate with, I think you're in trouble. MSNBC has turned on Biden. CNN has turned on Biden. They did a question of black voters on, I think it was CNN or MSNBC. They said, did you vote for Biden? They raised their hand. They said, are you going to vote for Biden again? They dropped their hand. So this is where we're at. We've also got a video of Joe Biden after the debate needing escorted off the stage by Jill. He needed escorted off the debate stage by Jill. He's standing at the podium, dazed and confused, and Jill has to come escort him off the stage. So it's even worse than it looked, if you can believe that. And then we've got Trump post-debate in his campaign room. You've got Jill Biden trying to rally energy behind Joe in the post-debate room as well in embarrassing fashion. So we've got all of these things coming up for you. Now, here's kind of my highlights, and then we'll get the highlights from Chase in studio with me. Oh, by the way, Tapa Drudge also saying disaster for Biden. He's going to be replaced. I think that this was either a deliberate setup to have Joe Biden fail, or they were just giving Joe Biden a chance. And they were saying, look, we'll give you a chance. If you can go out there and have this debate before the official nomination, before the official convention in August, then we'll move forward with you. If not, whether this was discussed or not, I don't know. But it seems like that's kind of the deal. This was either intentional sabotage, or they're basically giving him the opportunity. I mean, really, I guess it doesn't matter, Chase, because the result is the same.
I agree with you. And there's a couple of things to consider when wondering whether or not this was a sabotage. First of all, it's abundantly obvious that whatever happened tonight was deliberate. It's just what the motive was and what the thinking was. So we know that this debate was somewhat rigged. All the questions were very obviously favoring Joe Biden. All of the classic CNN stuff that we thought they were going to do against Trump, they did. They didn't give him the opportunity to follow up. They gave more time to Biden. But at the same time, in hindsight now, it seems to me like basically they handed it to Biden on a platter, knowing that he would prove incapable even if it was handed to him on a platter. So they don't look like they betrayed him. CNN doesn't look like it betrayed him because it was obviously rigged in Biden's favor, but he couldn't even handle that. I think they knew this was going to happen, and they just needed that excuse to replace him. And one thing that I did notice was interesting is I follow Harry Sisson quite a bit because he just drives me nuts. I know
don't even, please.
I know he's not that big, but
please stop this.
But Sisson is like one of the only people coming out in talking about how Biden won the debate and how amazing it was. So now what we're seeing on social media, now what we're seeing is who's paid by the Biden campaign directly versus who's paid by the party directly, right? And so the only people supporting Biden now are the ones that are funded by the campaign. The entire party flipped on him. And the fact they all flipped on him at the same time, in the same way, consistently across all these legacy media platforms, which we know are just one conglomeration of media, indicates to me that they planned to flip on him before the debate, and they got the green light after he proved himself a disaster.
If you're a Democrat loyalist or a Democrat media loyalist, and they do exist, it's hard to believe, but there are some out there. Can you imagine how dazed and confused you must be right now? Because this is the same media that's been propping Joe Biden up. This is the same media that's been telling you that Joe Biden is the best candidate ever, how fit he is, his age is his advantage, and all this stuff. And then in one fell swoop, they witness the total devastation, and the entire media turns against him and says, okay, it's a disaster. Everything we've told you is a lie, and that whole cheap fake narrative. I mean, how do they weasel their way out of that? So, but whatever. I guess if you're a Democrat voter, you're probably living in a life of confusion. You're lost in a world that doesn't exist already. I think that Trump addressed one thing, and he kind of tried to lean into it, but he kind of hinted at it when he was talking about abortion, and he kind of talks about how he's moving more towards the center policy-wise on abortion.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing he did on that podcast, that billionaire podcast the other day, and people started freaking out about the green card thing. And I'm sitting here saying, hold on a second. You're dealing with Trump, the politician. He's trying to win over as many voters. He's going to the center on some of these issues. Don't panic. In fact, don't even be surprised if he's just outright lying about these policies and change his stance when he gets in. But I feel like he tried to explain that when he brought up abortion. He said, hey, look, we got to get as many votes as possible. Most of America feels this way about abortion, so we're just going to leave it to the states. I got to get as many votes as possible. And he kind of stopped right there. But I think that was him kind of flagging to his base that really seems to be reactionary, saying, hey, look, don't be so reactionary when I do some of these policy things that are more towards the middle. We've got to get in the White House. We've got to win an election. Then we can really deal with this stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I was worried about how he was going to handle the abortion conversation because it's so sensitive and it's a make it or break it issue for so many voters. But here's why I don't care about the abortion issue when it comes to this particular race. I'm 100% pro-life. I think abortion is always wrong from conception to the very end. I don't think it should ever be done. But the fact of the matter is, if the issue is fundamentally about human life and protecting human life and fighting for humanity, then it's abundantly clear that the chances of millions upon millions of people dying in conflicts, whether it's World War III or isolated conflicts with Russia or any of these other wars that are going to break out, the chances of millions upon millions of additional people dying under Biden are so much greater and higher than under Trump. So yes, I'm abundantly pro-life, not pro-choice, pro-life, but it's not a make it or break it issue when it comes to these candidates, because regardless of what their policies are on abortion, it's unilaterally the case that Biden's going to result in the death of more innocent people.
Well, Trump has to think politically, strategically. And I think that when you look at where Biden tries to really get his juice, it's on climate change. Guess what? Nobody cares.
Yeah.
It's on abortion. Guess what? The single issue abortion voters aren't going to change this election. It's on January 6th. Guess what? Nobody cares. So when he's trying to hedge his bets on these issues, it's just not there's no victory in it for him. There's no victory for the Democrats there. And so I don't know if they try to change their tune on these things, if they get a new candidate in, but these are not winning issues. I'm sorry. You can lean into the climate crisis as much as you want. You can lean into January 6th as much as you want. You can lean into the abortion issue as much as you want. These are not winning issues in the 2024 election. They simply aren't.
I absolutely agree with you. I think the fundamental issue is immigration and the economy, and they're deeply intertwined. But this is why Biden's campaign strategy for this debate, and Biden failed at this, by the way. I think he reverted to old talking points from 4 years ago because I honestly think he forgot what he was supposed to say in response to some of these questions. So he defaulted to the archives of what he can still access in his broken mind. And I'm not just trying to say that in a hyperbolic way. But I think what's going on here is they told him not to rely on data or the accomplishments, quote, accomplishments of his presidency, because the fact of the matter is, no matter what you tell people, they still understand that they're feeling real financial and economic pain under this administration. So you can throw out statistics about unemployment. You can throw out statistics all day long about inflation rates going down and deficit differences between the two presidents. And they always lie with the statistics and manipulate them and frame them in a way that's more conducive to their political agenda. But the fact of the matter is, people are going to the grocery store and leaving with less than is on their list. For the first time since I was in my early 20s, Owen, I started filling up my gas tank a quarter of a tank at a time. Like at one point when I started my own business in 2016, I thought, oh, I finally made it into like successful financial adulthood because I don't have to worry about whether or not I can fill up the whole gas tank. But now I'm so tight on my budget, my wife allots me X number of dollars a week because she's got it all figured out on spreadsheets. I hate doing that stuff. And this is the type of pain and pressure that you no matter how many statistics or data points that the Biden administration throws at me, it's not going to change the fact that it's painful for me to fill the gas tank, just like it is for all other Americans.
Well, and that's why I don't think Joe Biden could really lean into the economy issues, because he's basically gaslighting everybody that's listening that knows the truth, because they're living it. They're living with the higher energy bills, the higher gas prices, the higher grocery bills. You know, I think a couple big moments that really turned the table. I think when Trump brought up the border and he called it the Biden invasion, and he talked about the young girls getting raped and murdered. Biden had nothing. He had nothing on that. And the kill shot was when Trump said, by the way, I talked to the families. Biden never has.
Right.
He's never called those families. I think that was a very significant moment. Some other moments that may be significant to people that are
and
politically
Biden was
wonky.
supposed to respond that crime is down, because that's the Democratic talking point on that issue. Whenever you say that immigration crime is an issue, they say, oh, well, all the FBI statistics show that crime is actually down. He forgot to do that.
I think that when Biden got really angry about the suckers and losers line that Trump denied, that I think he probably won on that because of Biden's response. When Biden went with the very fine people hoax that even Snopes now admits is a fake news story,
Yes.
I think that's going to cost him. Maybe less significant when Trump talked about Governor Northam saying we have the baby and then we decide whether to kill it or not. That might be a little less significant, but again, that's something you can just put out there as red meat and say, here's the clip. Biden obviously lied. I don't know what the Dems do with this, and we just got our video list, so we'll be going to some of these videos shortly. Chase Geiser, Owen Schroyer here with you in the InfoWars World Headquarters in Austin, Texas. I don't know how this one works with the Democrats. Again, if you're a Democrat voter, you're lost in a world that doesn't exist. But they always try to have this, they always try to have their cake and eat it too. Oh, America's the greatest country. We love America. And then the next day, America's colonizers and slave owners and racists and bigots. So they try to have their cake and eat it too with this issue. I just don't know how that plays. I don't know. I mean, again, that's one of those things that if you're really politically involved, you kind of notice and maybe it bothers you. I don't know if the undecided voter, if the politically ignorant person catches on to that. But I just feel like it's kind of wearing thin. I think that it's wearing thin at this point where they're the ones saying cops are bad and they're the ones saying America's bad and all this stuff and they're deleting our forefathers and everything. But then they're also saying, no, it's the greatest country and our heritage and everything. I think that's wearing thin. I think it's starting to reach its shelf life, this have their cake and eat it too with that issue.
I think so too. And if you think about it, I think traditionally, historically speaking, shifting your position on a policy as a politician with the changing winds works when the problems are constantly shifting and changing. And we've come from a background really up until the last 8 years where, 2000 election, 2004 election, 2008 election, 2012 election, all of the major problems and policy issues were shifting. So it was more conducive to political success for Democrats to have no principles and then just ride the coattails of whatever was trendy and happening. The problem with this, though, is that for the last 4 years, basically all of our problems have been the same exact problems and just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So this idea of having your cake and eating it too, or shifting or pivoting on these policies, it's not going to work to an American audience that is like, okay, you can change your mind or change your views or your perspective on any of these policies, but my problems are still the same and getting worse. What are you going to do about that? And I think that's why people are really going to resonate with Trump as the candidate, because he's been consistent about his position on all these major issues for 8 years, consistent about his position on Joe Biden for the last 4 to 8 years as well. And this shifting around, malleableness, this spinelessness, I don't think it's going to work because our problems are principle based. And so our candidate, our solution, has to be principle based too.
Trump definitely dominated in the foreign policy segment of the debate. Oh, yeah. Trump definitely dominated it, which is a very important aspect, the optics. He dominated the optics, and I think that's really why the fake news media, the Democrat media, is in panic, because of the optics. They can fake policy arguments, and they can even fake a victory in a debate. They cannot fake the optics. The optics is what really cost Biden. And the one thing I find interesting, and I think this is a major tell, the hosts never brought up convicted felon. The moderators never brought that up. And it only got mentioned once by Joe Biden. So to me, that says they know, hey, these political attacks on Trump have hurt us. They've helped his campaign. They've helped his candidacy. So let's not go there. I was actually surprised that they chose not to go there as many times. Like I said, only went there once. It was Joe Biden. I think that was very measured. Let's not say convicted felon. That's helping his cause.
I absolutely agree with you. It seemed like it was an avoided issue. I thought it was going to get drilled in, but that was the right strategy for the Democrats, was not to bring that up, because every time that comes up, Donald Trump gets more money, to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars since these 34 erroneous convictions. And the fact of the matter is, we are a culture, a country where virtually everyone has watched The Shawshank Redemption, right? I mean, it was
At
the
least
number
once.
one. It was the number one most rented movie from Blockbuster when Blockbuster still existed. And so we just inherently understand that just because you're convicted doesn't mean that you're guilty. I
Well,
mean,
nowadays, a lot of people know somebody who's been wrongly convicted or imprisoned.
yeah, I was thinking about this earlier today. Practically everybody I know seems like they're going to prison these days. So it's just not
They
going to
just
work.
sentenced another January 6th protest. I'm telling you, there's still going to be hundreds of arrests. They just sentenced another one.
Yeah, and so they made the right call not doing that. And the fact of the matter is, it's abundantly obvious that regardless of the fact that Joe Biden hasn't been formally convicted of any crimes, there is so much overwhelming evidence of the litany of crimes that he's committed, not to mention the fact that his son is a felon. And I understand that his son's not the one running for president. That's a reasonable thing to say. But I just think Biden didn't want to go there, man.
Well, and Trump actually did well mentioning, hey, you know, you might be facing a lot of charges. I
Yes.
think he kind of nuanced that into that where it wasn't overt, but it was like he kind of got the point across, maybe got people curious at least. The one part I also think that people might forget, but I think it had value. When Trump started talking about firing people, he's like, yeah, why aren't you firing people? Of course I fired
And that's
people.
his brand.
And
Fired.
Yeah, and you know, I kind of wished he would have maybe even gone even further with that and even leaned into corrupt politicians needing to be fired. But still, I think that served a purpose, and I don't think it was minor. I think the one thing we all agree on, and we're going to go to these video clips, I think the one thing we all agree on, we would like to see a Joe Biden versus Donald Trump golf match. I think
Yes.
everybody would
Oh my
like to see
God.
that. And there is 0% chance that Joe Biden is a 6 handicap. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen your swing.
0%
I've seen your
chance.
swing. That was one of the best responses ever. They didn't mute his mic for that one.
There's people that play golf their whole lives that can't get to a 6 handicap. Okay. So that was such a ridiculous lie. All right. Now, this is after the debate. CNN mistakenly leaves the camera still running. Joe Biden, dazed and confused, standing at the podium, not knowing what's going on. Jill has to come on to the stage, escort him off the stage in a very awkward moment. They're going to wish that they didn't have the cameras rolling. Guys, show me clip 2.
Making their way off the CNN debate stage. Looks like Jill Biden, the first lady.
So there's a confused Joe Biden.
Donald Trump's already gone.
Yeah, he walked right off.
The first debate of the 2020.
Doesn't have any problem, knows where he is. There's Joe Biden standing there, dazed and confused. Jill grabbing him by the arm, trying to get him to exit stage. Now he's having trouble dealing with the steps.
Oh, no railing.
Now he needs a second helping hand because he can't even handle steps.
President Harris getting fact checks.
And then finally, Jill is able to escort him off the stage and now dragging him across the stage by the hand.
That's a cheap fake. This isn't what happened.
Chase, in the last 10 days or so, we saw Joe Biden have to drag Joe Biden off a stage by the arm, and now, Barack Obama.
Yes.
Sorry, been on air since 3. Barack Obama have to drag Joe Biden off the stage by the arm, and now Jill Biden having to drag Joe Biden off the stage by the arm. This is, you can't recover from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious. The cheap fake thing isn't going to work either. Everything that they're doing now sounds, it comes off like desperation. And I think the party tonight, the establishment tonight, the establishment political class has formally made the decision that he is not going to be the candidate. And it's because of things like this. He's just not there. Even when here on the Alex Jones show tonight when we were covering it, Alex did something really interesting where he would go back to old clips of Joe Biden, you know, because we're doing commentary on the debate. We didn't want to just restream it without commentary. And even comparing Biden now to Biden 4 years ago or 8 years ago or 20 or 30 years ago is stark. And this was just the final nail in the coffin, man. I don't know who it's going to be for sure. I've got opinions and ideas. You know, a lot of people I respect have different opinions and ideas about who it's going to be. But I think we're quickly arriving at a place where it's not even up for debate as to whether or not they're going to replace him with someone.
Yeah, it feels that way, even though there seems to be some denial on behalf of the Biden campaign, because this was Jill Biden in the Biden campaign room, not Joe, Jill in the Biden campaign room after the debate, clip 1.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the...
You answered every question.
And there he is, confused.
And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Why?
Oh my
What's
gosh,
he looking at?
that is brutal.
Did you notice the whole debate? He barely ever looked at Trump. He was staring off to the left. There's not even the moderators to the left.
Actually, I did notice how maybe he was looking at like a random camera operator or a boom mic operator. I couldn't figure, but you're right. He kept looking over to his left where I can only figure there was a camera person, or maybe there was like maybe just a shiny object. I don't know.
It was bizarre. And it was funny because while we were watching the debate, I said, Harrison, look up whether mouth breathing is a sign of cognitive decline. This dude almost exclusively breathes through his mouth. Like, again, I'm not trying to make cheap shots again, but he looks constantly confused. I mean, when you're on a stage, traditionally speaking, even if you're a stupid person, you're self-conscious. You're aware of how maybe you look. Maybe you're trying to adjust your tie to make sure it's centered. We all make mistakes and flub up sometimes. But for him to just be standing there staring in the wrong direction, knowing that he's on live television with his mouth open the whole time, it was as if he wasn't even aware or able to conceive of the notion that other people were watching him. It's like he felt like he was actually in that room with just 4 people and not millions watching.
Well, and that's probably why they had it set up that way. You know, to think that he took a week to prepare for that too. I mean, that's even more worrisome that's a week of preparation. You know, it reminds me of, I just like doing sports analogies because I came from the sports media before I joined InfoWars. It reminds me of when the Denver Broncos laid an absolute egg against the Seattle Seahawks. I know you're not a sports guy.
I love sports.
I'm probably speaking gibberish to you. But Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos were huge favorites. Everybody thought that they were going to win. And then they get into the Super Bowl and lay an egg. I think the final score was like 52-3. First snap, they snap the ball over his head. Like, doesn't happen ever. Like, never happens. Super Bowl, 2 weeks to prepare, and you snap the ball over the quarterback's head. It, like, never happens. That was like Joe Biden coming out, and he was kind of going to speak like this. He didn't even have a voice. And by the way, I always thought the Denver Broncos threw that game. But that's another story. And maybe they threw the debate for Biden because they wanted him out. But it was just like, that's a week of preparation and that's all you got? Here's Kamala Harris having to admit it was a miserable start. Afterwards, clip 4.
Listen, first of all, what we saw tonight is the president making a very clear contrast with Donald Trump on all of the issues that matter to the American people.
Very true.
Yes, there was a slow start, but it was a strong finish. And what became very clear through the course of the night is that Joe Biden is fighting on behalf of the American.
Do you think Kamala realizes what danger she's in at this point? And look, I got to be honest, we have to look at all the angles here, and Alex and our guests always look at all the angles. I really don't even like to talk about the potential of what the deep state might do here, but I mean, it's already been covered. I really don't even like talking about it. But I mean, do you think Kamala realizes what potential danger even she's in? I mean, if she's smart, she needs to like kind of back off and just say, look, do what you got to do. I'm not in the way.
She will be lucky. The best outcome for her is that once the Biden campaign realizes that it's lost the support of the political establishment, the Democratic Party, the media, when Biden withdraws from the race, the best that Kamala Harris can hope for is being the VP for whoever the next candidate is. So she could come out and save face and say, I always just wanted to be the VP. I want to support this next candidate. I don't want to be the president of the United States yet. Or, I want to let somebody else take over. I just want to continue to be in my role as VP. That's the best that she can hope for. I don't think there's any risk for her life, but she's basically politically doomed because she was one of the least popular candidates during the 2020 primary election. And the only reason she's in the position that she's in is because she was riding the coattails of an establishment backed Joe Biden, a CIA backed Joe Biden, who was, in my opinion, blackmailed into running in order to guarantee that he would be able to pardon Hunter Biden, which is, I think, one of the reasons why they've gone after Hunter this whole time is because they needed to leverage keeping Biden in office. That's why the whole family supports him. That's why Jill supports him. It's all about saving Hunter, I think, in a lot of ways.
Perfect Manchurian candidate, perfect sock puppet for Barack Obama, who even said, like, yeah, I'll be the president from behind. Nobody will know it'll be me. I'll just have somebody up there pretending it's me. It's funny, here we are. And even Joe Biden said, you know what, I'll just say I'm sick and I'll step aside. So maybe now, because they're saying he had a cold, is what they're saying. He had a cold now, really, in the middle of summer. I'm sure that's what it was. So, okay, now this is live at MSNBC. And by the way, these clips are everywhere, folks. I'm telling you, CNN, MSNBC, the news networks that have been running cover for Joe Biden have now all turned on him. It's a disaster. They don't want him anymore. And this is in live time where MSNBC is asking black voters if they're going to vote for Biden again, and it doesn't go well. Clip 5.
Raise your hand for me if you voted for Biden in 2020. And keep your hand up if you're still with him this time around after that debate. Slowly going down.
And, you know, I don't think it's a surprise. It's the men. The one woman kept her hand up. The men dropped it. I think Biden is losing not just the male vote, specifically the black male vote. They don't want him.
Well, the question really is simple. Which demographic or class or genre of people is actually positively affected by a second term for Joe Biden? I honestly, I cannot think of a single demographic or special interest, other than maybe some foreign ones, that would benefit from a second term of Joe Biden. Whether you're looking at the transgender community, which their policy is officially to sterilize people as soon as they start to show symptoms of gender dysphoria. Whether you look at minority communities in terms of race, they've all been disenfranchised by the influx of illegal migrants. Whether you look at the elderly class who's retiring, their Social Security is being stripped from them, and inflation is so high that they had enough to retire, but now it's not worth anything. I mean, there's no one that benefits, and I think people are just realizing that, hey, regardless of how I feel about Donald Trump, this guy is no dice.
Well, and also it was Biden that wrote the crime bill in 1994 and bragged about it. It was Donald Trump that passed the First Step Act.
Yes.
A lot of people are aware of that, whether they've been in prison themselves or they have family. That's something that they're very aware of. Trust me, I was behind bars, I know. Now, Gavin Newsom seems to be the belle of the ball. The media is following him around. He's doing the TV rounds. I mean, literally, there's a gaggle following him around. And the whole narrative is it's going to be Gavin. It's going to be Gavin. He's number 2 right now with the Vegas odds to be nominated. And here was just a short clip of him being interviewed. Gavin, are you going to step up? Clip 6.
Are you going to be the next Democratic nominee?
No, our nominee is Joe Biden. I'm looking forward to voting for him in November. He's going to be our nominee.
Because you know that everyone are talking about you as a possible nominee now.
Thanks.
Are you enjoying it?
We're going up here.
It looks like he's enjoying it. American Psycho.
Question is, what was he doing there?
Kind of looks like the cartoon Joker. Well, he was a support group for Joe, I'm sure.
But who else was in the group? I mean, what? Any other Democratic governors?
But again, notice he wasn't in the Biden campaign room. He was doing media rounds.
Very bizarre. But he doesn't have a book out like Hillary. We came out with a book this week.
I don't think he had a
She's been silent on Twitter.
Times
she hasn't tweeted in like 7 hours. That was the last I checked. So very bizarre.
But this is not insignificant. The media is not talking good about Joe Biden. It's like they're begging Newsom to run. They're like begging for it. Again, did you see that gaggle? That's not around Joe Biden. Who's doing TV rounds afterwards? It's not Biden. It's Newsom.
Well, when was the last time that a candidate lost a presidential debate and they were swarmed by the press after, or someone else was swarmed by the press after as to whether or not they would replace the candidate who lost? I mean, that's totally unprecedented. And I understand that this debate is one of the first, if not the first, debates that's ever happened before the conventions, before they're formally the candidates.
It's the first.
But even so, it's bizarre, and it seems like there was a green light at the top, because people think about these different TV networks or newspapers as if they're different organizations or different entities. Most of them are publicly traded, not all of them, but they are all infiltrated and compromised by the intelligence community ever since the Red Scare. I mean, this is Project Mockingbird level stuff. So when one does something, they all do it as well, except for maybe some token opposition network like Fox or something. Everything else is just alternative media. That's why you can only get the truth from alternative media. And so for an entire gaggle of swamp creatures who literally answer to producers and editors are running up and talking about the same thing. You have David Axelrod, of all people, for the first time admitting, I mean, this was a conspiracy theory yesterday to suggest that it was even possible that Joe Biden wouldn't be the candidate. Now it's a mainstream talking point. Very, very enlightening, I think.
By the way, David Axelrod was the epitome of this current state of the Democrat Party afterwards on CNN. Disheveled, slovenly. It looked like somebody just poured water on him or something. I don't know what that was. Glasses fogging up, drinking from an empty cup. Like
he was stressed out.
That's your Democrat. Yeah, probably pulling his hair out, sweating profusely as he has to go up there and defend Biden. Here was Donald Trump entering his campaign room after the debate, clip 3. Notice how he's able to walk on his own power. The big difference between Trump and Biden. One can walk under his own power. The other needs help from his wife, fake doctor, off the stage.
You know, I mean, they're basically opposites in every way. And one of the things that I really noticed, I know that the trendy thing to talk about tonight is how terrible Biden's performance was, and it was, and that is the most interesting thing. But in terms of actual policy substance, if you look at the concluding arguments, anybody, lawyer, whatever, will tell you that that's like the most important thing. The intro statements and the concluding arguments. It's a concept in psychology called primacy recency. People remember the first thing about you and they remember the last thing about you. In the middle, it's muddy, right? And in the closing arguments, Joe Biden literally advocated for raising taxes on Americans. He said the wealthy class, but raising taxes on Americans and lowering tariffs on foreign nations. It's the epitome of the opposite of America first. And that's what we're seeing here. That's the number one main difference, I think, between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, other than the fact that one actually has a mind, is Trump's policies are America first. Biden's policies are globalist conglomeration of political power, America last.
All right, so let's look at the near future and let's look at the far future. In this case, I'm talking about 130 days till the election. Joe Biden is still the president.
Yes.
He has to get back to his role as president. I don't know how he does it. What attempt or what recovery can Joe Biden have in, let's just say, the next week? What can he possibly do to recover from this disaster? I don't think going back into hiding is the answer. I don't know. I don't see how Joe Biden recovers from this in the near term. He's going to have to do something.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see over the next 30 days specifically, it reminds me of when you go to the doctor because you have some sort of a problem. Just imagine hypothetically, and the doctor says, hey, we're going to run some tests, but we think that you have cancer. So right now, they've been given bad news by a doctor, but they have to analyze the test for the next 14 days before they know for sure whether he's terminally ill. So I think we're going to see a lot of damage control tomorrow. I think over the next 14 to 30 days, the Biden campaign and presidency is going to be analyzing whether or not him being the candidate is even an option anymore. I mean, this is devastating for the campaign. So I don't think he can do anything to recover other than maybe change all of his policies to Donald Trump's policies.
Well, he tried that. But he tried that with the border policy.
They're going to be in denial that this was a terminal diagnosis for his campaign for probably 14 to 30 days. I anticipate that before the end of July, we're going to have a withdrawal from the race.
Well, they're really up against it because in order to get on the Ohio ballot, unless the legislature changes its rules, and maybe they will, they have to nominate before the end of July, or it's before the convention in mid-August. So they're up against it with that. And plus, certainly they realize what a disaster it is to try to switch your president right before the convention. You know, it's just,
yes, but nothing's a bigger disaster than Joe Biden.
Right. And that's why we're considering these options, because I think that's the realization, is that the biggest disaster is Joe Biden and everything else is lesser.
Did you ever watch the series Band of Brothers?
No.
So Band of Brothers, about the 101st Airborne, there's a famous moment where the leadership sends a particular commanding officer into combat, and this guy just breaks down. He can't follow orders. The chaos of the battle is too much for him. I mean, he's literally like Biden. He loses his mind. And there's this moment where the leadership on the sidelines of this battle in Bastogne just say, Spears, you're in, and they replace him at the last second of the battle, and it reverses it. I think we're at a moment, the audience who's watched this, I'm sure a lot of you have, because a lot of World War II buffs listen to us, what we're experiencing and witnessing right now within the Democratic Party is that moment in Band of Brothers where they're in the middle of a major battle. They're now realizing their commanding officer is totally incompetent, and they have to make a leadership change now, otherwise the whole war could be forfeit for them.
Now, if we look at the election, nobody believes Joe Biden can even make it there, I think, at this point, let alone win. Now, they can do an outright steal. They might even view that as a little risky. You look at a replacement, no matter who it is, really all they're running on is hatred of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I don't know how you really build up a policy campaign in 100 days till an election. I really don't understand. You know, you can't really do that. You don't really run on policy. You don't really run on track record. All you're basically running on is, hey, I'm not Donald Trump. I don't think that takes. I don't think that takes either. I mean, really, I think you're looking at a situation, their only option is steal, whether it's Biden or not. Because the hatred of Donald Trump isn't there. The I'm not Donald Trump for vote for me, so vote for me doesn't work. I think that's what they're looking at here.
Well, and the thing is, during the last election, obviously I believe that it was rigged, but there were certain disadvantages that Trump had then that he doesn't have now. namely the pandemic. Psychologically, people are very stupid. They make decisions like voting and purchasing emotionally before rationally. And push comes to shove, the pandemic was a terrible experience for everyone because of lockdowns and all the terrible policies and the economic crisis. And so they go to the voting box, or they decide to mail in their ballots, and they're thinking, okay, who's the president during this terrible time in my life? I'm going to vote for the other guy. But it's been 4 years. I mean, that pain has worn off. There just simply isn't the same level of hatred for Donald Trump that there was among Democratic voters. Now, the establishment still hates him just as much, but Democratic voters have had 4 years to heal while they deal with the terrible decision that they've made. And I don't think it's just anecdotal examples when you see video after video on social media of Democrats saying, I'm so sorry that I voted for Joe Biden. I think a lot more people are friendly to Donald Trump now than were in 2020.
Well, there's no doubt the long knives are out for Biden now. I really don't see any potential political victories on the horizon. He's not going to get anything out of foreign policy dealing with Israel or Ukraine. That's a disaster. He can't turn around the economy overnight. There's nothing he can do. He's already lost on the border issue, even though he's tried to win. So I don't even see any potential victories that they can just kind of rip off the tree. There's no political low-hanging fruit that he can just rip off the tree and have some recovery. You know, I mean, maybe they do some...
Snowden, maybe?
No. Even I don't even think that would be enough. They'd have to go for some lower fruit, like, you know, more student debt cancellation or reparations. I mean, that's the only kind of thing I could see them trying to do to try to pull something positive out of this absolute disaster. But he's gonna need to correct course, change the narrative, and really do it fast, because the narrative right now is Biden's done. He's cooked. He's shot. He just got destroyed in that debate. And you know, what makes that an even more significant talking point is when you go back, I mean, let's just look at when Trump entered in 2016 against Hillary and then against Biden in 2020. They never admit when their candidates lose a debate. It's always nothing but victory. They're admitting he lost. All the same people that will tell you no matter what, the Democrat candidate always wins. They're admitting he lost.
Another reason to believe that this was set up, actually rigged against Joe Biden. I mean, we were talking about how it was rigged against Trump, and it was in every surface level way in terms of time and follow-up questions and muting of the microphones. But essentially, this couldn't have gone worse for Joe Biden. And one thing that is clear is that Donald Trump definitely made the correct decision in agreeing to participate in this debate.
Trump gets an A, Biden gets an F.
Yep.
That's it.
Not even close.
Trump got an A tonight. Biden gets an F.
Yes.
And it was so
And
obvious.
if you go back to the 2020
if
debates,
there was an F minus, he'd get an F minus.
I think, and I would even concede that Donald Trump lost one of the 2020 debates. I mean, the one where he was talking over him the whole time, it just wasn't a very good performance. I remember watching it with my family, and I'm proudly voting for Trump. This is not just us being biased and right-wingers or Trump supporters saying this, because I'll concede to you right now that Trump did not do nearly as well against Joe Biden in 2020 debates as he did tonight. This was an AF level disparity, I think, yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you see at the bottom of the screen, Dr. Jones Naturals. A lot of us here on the crew are powered by a energy drink. It's called Turbo Force Plus. That's how I've been able to be on air since 3 p.m., and we're about to go on midnight here. The crew's been working here all day since 8 a.m., and there's a great product there, 10 hours of clean energy and 1 scoop of Turbo Force Plus. It's 20% off right now at drjonesnaturals.com. Now, here's the deal. The crew up here working late, and they're going to be right back up here in the morning, 8 a.m., for the American Journal with Harrison Smith. And you know, we have a big audience tonight. It's kind of nice to be back in the throes of the election season here at InfoWars. Obviously, ratings always go up. And a lot of people may have forgotten we're still on air. When they censored us everywhere, they might have tuned out. We're here, folks. InfoWars is live 10 hours a day. And if you're just now joining us on X and watching us there, we appreciate it. We have a Rumble channel with a 24-hour feed where you can find us as well. We had to create our own video platform, band.video, which is where you can go and watch all of our live shows as well. Chase Geiser over here, he hosts InfoWars Sunday Night Live on Sunday nights. I'm the host of the InfoWars War Room following the Alex Jones Show, 3 to 6 p.m. Central Time. So please, if you enjoy InfoWars, if you like what you've seen tonight, tune into us every day. There's a reason why they want to shut down, because quite frankly, we're number one. We're number one, and you can't beat us, so you have to shut us down. And that's how it goes around here. But we're proud to be here. We're proud to be here with the crew. And by the way, Chase, you just wrote a book all about the current political time that we're in. So I know that it's either out right now or it's coming out. It's out right now.
On the 18th. Yeah, Alex Jones wrote the foreword of my book. It's called The Rise of American Populism, a handbook for radical patriotism. Roger Stone was kind enough to blur the back of it, Gavin McInnes, Jack Posobiec, and others. And it's a book about exactly what we're witnessing right now. The American people are fed up with the Democratic establishment and the Republican establishment. They're realizing that our problems aren't about whether the Democrats or the Republicans are correct. Our problems are about the people versus the political class. So thank you for mentioning that, Owen. It's very kind of you. I highly encourage everybody to go check it out. I appreciate it. But please don't get my book until you've at least gone to InfoWarsStore.com or DrJonesNaturals.com and gotten something there first, because Alex Jones is 100 times more powerful than I am, and supporting him is really, really important in this imperative time in our nation's history.
Well, and I'm kind of waiting to put out my prison book because I want to do it real strategically, kind of closer to the election, because it's really going to be a major implication of how Joe Biden has political prisoners. And I'm thinking I'm going to title it 60 Days of Political Prisoner in Biden's America. So I think I really want it to kind of impact that moment. But now it's like, well, Biden might not even be the nominee. So maybe it's in the Democrat-run America. But I do have a perfect shirt for this occasion. Did you know that? I have the perfect shirt for people to wear. Well, it's called the Biden Brain Freeze. It's the Biden Brain Freeze shirt, and it's only exclusively available. Shameless plug here. Yes, shameless plug, of course. Exclusively available at OwenSchroyerStore.com. It's the Biden Brain Freeze shirt, and it's perfect for this moment. It's Biden Brain Freeze. It says, you know the thing, made in China. You can only get it at OwenSchroyerStore.com. We kind of stopped doing T-shirts here at InfoWars. It was always very popular, so I decided to kind of pick up some T-shirts of my own and put them out at OwenSchroyer.store. But the Biden Brain Freeze exclusively there. Maybe the crew can get it up before we sign off. Maybe not. They've been here all day, and they'll be right back up here in the morning. So the legend of InfoWars lives on. And it's funny when I'm hearing Alex kind of talk about that yo-yo thing. As soon as he said yo-yo, I was like, that's exactly it. I always kind of call it the roller coaster ride of InfoWars, or the ship in the perfect storm.
Yeah.
But I think the yo-yo analogy might have been actually the best one, because that's kind of what it feels like. It's like a yo-yo, up, down, around, walk the dog.
Right. We're going to be okay. They're closing us tonight. We're going to be okay. They're closing us tonight. I don't think everybody in the audience realizes that what they hear about InfoWars is exactly the same as what the crew hears. Like, we're not in on something. When you hear that we're closing, we all wonder and fear the same thing. When you hear that we're going to be okay, we all think the same thing as well. So what you've experienced as a listener worried about InfoWars, just imagine what the crew's experienced worrying about whether they're going to have a job fighting the good fight.
All right. Well, the crew might have gone completely insane. They say somebody's back there requesting that we should stay on until we get to 1 million viewers. What are we at right now, guys? Do you know what we're at right now?
Stay on until we raise 1.5.
940.
Oh, wow.
I don't know, guys. We could be here for a while.
Well, not if everybody who's listening now shares it.
That's true. If everybody reposts this, we can finally send the crew home, many of which haven't had a break since 8 a.m. or haven't even eaten, maybe. They're up here starving, just working.
939,000. Man, I don't know. It's midnight. I don't know if we can get over 1 million. Everybody's sleeping.
I just think it's incredible that, in 2016, we were by far number one. It wasn't even close. Every video, just about every video we put up on our YouTube channel would get 1 million views. Just about every single one, in like 24 hours even. And so we were just, we had too much of an impact. And so it's, X is not exactly the same video platform as YouTube, obviously. But the fact now that we're able to go viral on X and get these types of numbers, yeah, they don't like Elon Musk very much.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing to consider, too, is YouTube and Instagram and some of the other major social media platforms have totally changed their algorithms and policies to hide political content of any form. So, yes, it's true that we don't have a YouTube account anymore, but basically everybody with a political YouTube channel, with a few notable exceptions, is suffering in terms of view counts now. All the political conversation is happening almost exclusively on X, and we are really dominating there. So where the political conversation is happening, InfoWars is still way ahead, and thank God for Elon Musk making that decision. Bring us back.
I don't think we're quite there yet, but there's a threshold that will be crossed, if not in 2028, definitely in the 2030s when it comes to politics, and that's where are people getting their news, or more specifically, where are people watching political content? I think that the cable networks, the cable news networks, the TV audience, I think the threshold changes in 2020. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think we're inching closer, but that will be a major, major paradigm shift when the cable news networks can't dominate the news spectrum, can't dominate the narrative, and it's independent people, it's alternative news outlets that just need an internet. They just need an active audience. Once that changes, you know, that's why censorship is such an important issue to the deep state, the corrupt establishment, because anybody in power, really, any tyrants that want to control you, it's such a threat that we can go live right now and get 1 million people. We're not supposed to do that. That's only for the major cable outlets. That's only for CNN. That's only for MSNBC. That's only for the guys that are controlled. They're allowed to get. You can't be trusted with that. You can't have that type of influence. You know, that's the mindset. That's why the censorship was so important. And regardless of what you think of Elon Musk, him freeing up X to the extent he has is just paramount
Can you
in the defeat
imagine
of the corrupt media.
how things would be going right now if X wasn't acquired? If Twitter wasn't turned into X? I mean, what would we be looking at? And I'm curious to know what you think. What would we be looking at in terms of the political conversation if none of these accounts that have been reinstated were reinstated? If all of the policies about talking about vaccines or whatever would get you shadow banned or literally banned on X? I mean, if the deep state still had a monopoly on social media like it did before Twitter was acquired and it turned into X, what do you think the difference would be politically in terms of real world?
You know, I think, you know, that's what I'm saying is I think we're kind of yet to see that.
Yeah.
I think the big shift was in 2016, and that was the first time the social media world kind of just made that huge crater and impact in the political world. I think now we're kind of resetting it, revamping it, dealing with the censorship. I would say, though, on a personal level, for me, I would not have been able to raise as much awareness for my political persecution and my political imprisonment if it wasn't for me being freed on X. Yeah, we have a huge audience at InfoWars. We have a bunch of people that go to Infowars.com every day, Band.video every day, but you're kind of reaching the same people, right? You're reaching the same people, and they ban those links on social media. So if it wasn't for X, the political awareness of my case, where a lot of Republican representatives reached out for comment and wanted to talk to me about that, I know that wouldn't have happened. I probably would not have been able to have near the legal fundraisers so that I could hire lawyers. So for me personally, it's played a major impact, and it's really something hard for people to understand until they've been through it. And that's why so many of these quote-unquote experts that go on mainstream news, specifically I would say Fox in this case because it applies more, these experts that are so shocked and stunned at everything that's going on with Trump. Well, you're not the expert. You haven't been politically persecuted. You haven't been censored. You haven't been imprisoned. You haven't been censored. So you haven't been sued. These aren't the experts. We're the experts now. InfoWars, we're the experts for this time we're living in because we've been through it. We've lived on the battlefield. We've lived in the trenches. They're not. They're up in some tower. They're up in some watchtower somewhere miles away from the battlefield.
Well, inciting the experts is such a cheap shot for so many reasons. I mean, let's just look at politics specifically. How many people have you heard of that majored in political science in college that actually wound up in a political role? Not even just a candidate or the president or whatever, but even wound up in any way, shape, or form in politics as a business. Like all of the people who have been successful pundits or politicians, basically for like 100 years, a lot of them studied law, but nobody's like the kid. There's always that kid that's like, I'm majoring in poli-sci because I want to be president of the United States one day. It just never plays out. It's not the experts who innovate. Experts are notorious for being experts in everything up until this point. The history of an industry, the history of how things have been, the history of media, but it's not experts that break through to the other side and innovate what the future looks like. I mean, just Elon Musk has gone from being somebody who started PayPal, and then somebody who figured out how to, as a chief engineer, make a rocket land again, and then figured out how to buy a social media company and actually make it profitable for the first time. Twitter was never profitable before, and countless other things, none of which he's really credentialed in or an expert. And I know that he's a different example because he's just like a massive IQ, genius level person, but Benjamin Franklin discovered electricity without a degree in electrical engineering. And I don't know, I think we just need to forget about the experts. If somebody has reasonable, rational ideas, that's far preferable to somebody who's a total moron that has a piece of paper.
Here's what I think. This is where the political revolution maybe makes its inroads in the 2024 elections. And I've talked to quite a few candidates. You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Troy Nehls, Byron Donalds, Anna Paulina Luna, Thomas Massey. This is kind of the exception, right? This is still the minority of the Republican representative. You know, the Senate, you've got your Ted Cruz, your Josh Hawley, and they talk a big game. They've got some actionable deliverables, but much more coming out of the House. I think what we're potentially looking at is a Republican-led House that has more vocal American patriots who are ready to go on the offense to save our country. I mean, you get 40, you get 50, and all of a sudden the rest have to play catch-up, or you're just like, you're the outlier now. And I think that that's kind of what we're on the precipice of. And then if the House starts to move like this, the Senate will have to follow, or they're going to be caught with their pants down, not taking any action, and they're going to be embarrassed. So, you know, that's why I salute the Marjorie Taylor Greenes. That's why I salute the Thomas Masseys, because they're moving the ball so far downfield, it clears that space behind for these other kind of weak-kneed, cowardly, squish Republicans to finally kind of step up.
Trailblazers.
And at least fill that empty void. But it's like, well, they're much farther down the field than they were before. So, you know, I really see the peaceful political revolution. And it doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. We're not in a cult. People are still going to have their issues with this policy or that policy or this foreign entanglement, whatever, geopolitics. But we're finally going to have representatives that sound like us, that talk like us, that think like us, and they actually want to bring that to the House of Representatives. It's coming to the attorneys general. It's coming to school boards. You know, so I really think if there ever was an opportunity for a red wave, this is the year. And the only thing stopping it at this point is just total election corruption. And maybe we just hope and pray the Republicans have done enough, or for a miracle. But I see the opportunity there. I really do. And I'm not some, political hopeful, like, selling you hopium. No, I really see it. I really see people that are running for office that are serious, that love this country, that talk like us, think like us, and want to take that mentality to the Congress. And you know what? You know one thing we have in common? We hate the government.
Yes, 100%. Well, I think what we're seeing in the Republican Party right now, too, is there's a generation of Republican voters who really trusted the CIA and the FBI and our government. They were symptoms of Cold War propaganda, US, and they're retiring or frankly dying off. And so rather than those who would be so offended if you would ever mention, for example, that maybe 9/11 was an inside job, because they were patriots and they loved our country and they thought that that was criticizing our country, now you have a generation coming up in the Republican Party that realize that there's a difference between the United States and America, and that the government of the United States is actually an enemy of America. They don't see them as the same thing anymore. That's why we're seeing, I think, this shift. But it's not like a schism where there's a civil war in our party, like how the left eats the left. It's almost more like there's a mantle being, or a torch being passed, I think. Like when you see in an old movie that, you know, a father who's a king passes away and then his son becomes the king. It's almost like we're getting the ball now. It's not like we're trying to kill off old Republicans or anything in terms of political power, that we hate them for being neocons, but there was a major misconception about the nature of our government among Republican voters for decades in this country as a result of a lot of this propaganda. That is dying off.
I agree. I think that Trump is kind of the last torchbearer of this generation, and in a way, he's kind of like the redemption of past generations or the boomer generation or something. He's kind of like their last redemption in a way. And then after that, I do think it's the younger generations. I do think it's the Vivek Ramaswamys, it's the Josh Hawleys, it's the Byron Donalds, the Matt Gaetz. I think that that's the future. But this is kind of Trump is the guy. Everybody at this point is behind him, and it's like, okay, make that one last give this generation of conservatives one last thrust for patriotism and conservative politics, and then pass the torch down, and we're going to be the next standard bearer. The one promise that Trump made to the American people that's the most important, and it will be his most difficult, is he said he's going to give the country back to us. He's going to give our government back to us. That's the most important promise he ever made. It's going to be the most difficult thing he's ever had to deliver on. But I think that's what he really needs to focus on if he gets in there again.
Well, he has absolutely no incentive to do anything other than that, too. That's one of the reasons why I'm voting for him. First of all the world's supervillains hate him, so that's the only reason anyone should really need to vote for him, right? All the most evil people in the world absolutely hate him, exclusively him, too. And the other thing is he doesn't need the money. He doesn't need anything else. People criticize him for his ego. His ego is one of the reasons why I'm voting for him, because all he cares about is his legacy. And he wants to go down in history as the best president of the United States. He even said it tonight during the debate. And I like that about him. I want people to be president of the United States that want to be remembered as the best president in the history of America, right? That's a good thing that they want to do a good job. So he's got no incentive to sell us out. He doesn't need to do any of this insider trading BS like Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi or Dan Crenshaw or others. This is somebody who is not only trying to save his own legacy, but realizes that the only way to do that is to save the country. He genuinely loves the country, and I think you're right, man. This is the old guard shifting us in the right direction right before they hand the ship over to us. And I think Trump is setting us on the right course, and we have to do everything we can to support him.
Okay, well, the next big developments inevitably are going to be the Supreme Court decisions on Trump's immunity and some other things. And then, of course, do they put Trump in jail on July 11th? Those are the two big things in the near future that are going to have the most impact. All right, we've gone beyond midnight. Ceremoniously, we've hit 1 million live audience on X. And so we're going to send the crew home. I want to give big ups to the crew tonight, working all day. They're going to be right back here. Some of them will probably just sleep here so they can work in the morning. To everybody that joined us on air tonight, Alex, Harrison Smith, Chase Geiser, Owen Schroyer here, Roger Stone, Luke Rudkowski, Bob Barnes. I think, am I missing anybody, guys? Steven Crowder and his crew.
Roger Stone, did you say that?
Yep. So and big ups to the audience as well. Big ups to the audience for continuing to support us. And remember, we will be live tomorrow, folks. We will be live tomorrow.
Some of you here have seen me lecture on the